One thing I've realized since discovering that I'm psychic is that it's not what we think it is. I think that a lot of stigma and folklore around being psychic has convinced us that it's this old lady with big warts, like a witch looking into a crystal ball, reading people's future, or it's some charlatan trying to sell you something that doesn't exist. And it's kept us from realizing that so many of us are psychic in our own ways. And part of that is not really understanding how being psychic shows up. We can get psychic messages in multiple different ways. So today I'm going to go over what those ways are with you in a way that's really easy to understand and digest, and that can help you understand and discover your own psychic gifts. I'm Melissa, and I've recently come out of the psychic closet and am sharing my journey here with you, because what I've understood is that the more I share my story, the more I share my experiences, the more people I meet who are like, hey, me too. And they get to discover that they also have psychic abilities, and to develop those and to be able to use them in their lives, which is very, very fulfilling and exciting and fun and energizing. So I'm here to share that with you. So if you feel that way too, you can dig deep, dive in, and really discover like what kind of gifts you have to play with in the world. One of the ones that I think that people are most aware of is clairvoyance. But clairvoyance isn't a basic blanket to put over everyone who's psychic. Clairvoyance is specifically talking about seeing, a psychic sight. So this could happen in the third eye, it could happen in your mind's eye, it could happen in your imagination. There's different ways, and you can actually see things in the physical world. It shows up differently for different people. From my experience, it shows up differently depending on where the message is coming from. I know that when I was a young child, I was really afraid of the dark, and I think that happens to a lot of kids because we are sensing and seeing, and we're more aware, like the veil is thinner. So we're more aware of things that are existing around us that we don't necessarily experience in the physical realm. And I would see things, spirits, entities, different things, and it really scared me. So there was one point in my life, I was about 10 years old, and I remember saying, look, I know you're here, just I don't want to see you, it scares me. And I stopped seeing things after that, which now that I'm older and I'm not afraid of it and I understand what it is, I'm inviting that back in ways that feel safe and easy to understand. Now, sometimes that shows up for me, like if I'm playing with tarot cards, I'll get like flashes, like when you look at one of those pictures on memes and stuff, that if you stare at it for 10 seconds and then close your eyes and then you see a different picture, it'll be like that, like a flash of a vision in my closed eyes. Sometimes I see it in my imagination, like I can see a scene playing out like it's in a movie, but it's in my imagination. And that happens a lot of times when I'm seeing things about other people and things that have happened in their lives. I do get communication from other people's spirit guides, and will often experience one of their really pivotal moments in life that helps me to understand the context of what I'm working with and who I'm working with. So it shows up, like I said, more like a movie. So there's these different ways that clairvoyance can show up. And you may have all of them, you may have none of them, you may just have one or two of them. But either way, you're still clairvoyant. There's also clairaudience. That's hearing things. No, I'm not talking about schizophrenia, although I do wonder sometimes, like if some schizophrenia is actually people who, again, the veil is thin and they're hearing other things, but that's not my experience, so I can't really speak to it. But I'm curious about it. But clairaudience is when you can hear things in the psychic space. So it could come through as an audible sound. Like I know when my mom was pregnant with me, she was with my dad, who was very abusive. And before she even knew that she was pregnant with me, it was only just a few weeks, she was woken up by a loud audible voice that told her to leave, that told her everything to pack, gave her very explicit instructions of what to do. Now, my mom is a big believer in Christianity. I grew up in the evangelical church. So her context, the way that she experienced that, is God was speaking to her. And of course, in some version, that was God, because we all have our part of source energy. But it was an audible voice nonetheless. And I think that because she was not tuned into her intuition in a way that she would listen to it, that was the way that the message needed to come through for her to hear it, to understand it, to heed it. And she did. And the voice led her to make all the right moves, and to just barely, when she got out, it told her to leave. She was going to go back for some memorabilia, and they were like, no, leave it. You got to go now. But when you do, turn up this clock radio. And so she turned up the clock radio, and when she did, she saw what time it was. And then later, when she was in court, my grandfather and my dad spoke to what time it was when they walked in, and that the music was so loud. And she had only missed them by a few minutes. And that saved our lives. If she had been caught trying to leave, it most definitely would have cost us our life. So that was that was like an audible sound. That was clairaudience, literally out loud. But sometimes it could be like a whisper, like the whisper of your intuition, which I always feel like coming from the inside. It's like a soft, I can feel it kind of coming from my solar plexus. It's coming from within, from that center of myself. Now, I also hear things that come from my mind, but it feels like it's coming from my mind. It's conjured. There's a train of thought that leads to those things. So that I know is not my intuition. Sometimes I hear it from other people's guides, like I mentioned before, and they're really persistent, those guys. They really like to get their message across. And I have discovered, just trial and error and pattern recognition, just discovered that when it's people's guides, they typically say the same thing. Like every time I'm around that person, I'll just hear the same message over and over again until I give the message. It's not always well received. Sometimes it is. And that's just the finding out part. You know, I have to try these things and realize, oh, just because I have this memory of their most formidable moment in life doesn't mean I need to share that memory with them. It just gives me context for how to speak to them, for what I'm dealing with, for what's sensitive, that kind of context where I'm giving the message in a way that it can be received. But that's one way that you can hear it. I've also heard from plants. I tell this story often. I'm surrounded by nature, as you can see, and I was going to do an art project with my neighbor's daughter, and we were trimming limbs from a tree, and like little, limbs. And I got kind of impatient. I just grabbed a big bunch of them, and I was going to cut them up. And I just heard like the loudest, like, no, like it's so loud within, like that I just let it go. Like it startled me. And then when I looked closer, the part that I had grabbed in the tree was covered in blooms, but it was the only part of the tree that had blooms. It's a Suriname cherry tree. And so I would have cut off its first blooms, which could have affected its whole fruiting cycle. And it clearly didn't want that. It made it loud and clear that it didn't want that. That's clairaudience. Again, it can show up in different ways, but if you're hearing a message, that's what it is, and that is one of your psychic abilities. So I encourage you to kind of play around with it and start to notice the differences when it sounds like it's coming, like if it's coming from one of my loved ones who've passed on. I know that because either I'll feel like them, which I can't even explain with words. It's like I feel like I am them. Again, I don't know how to explain that other than that, but it's also happened with people I didn't know. It happened when I went to Bob Marley's mausoleum. It's a very bizarre, interesting experience. But a lot of times when I'm hearing from them, I'll get a picture of them in my mind, or I'll have other senses that are stimulated, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the video. Because there are these 4 main cognizants that people are aware of, but there's 3 other ones I'm going to kind of surprise you with at the end. But that is clairaudience. Then there's clairsentience. And y'all know I'm all about the feels. So clairsentience, I am very in touch with. That's feeling. You could feel it in emotion. You could feel it like, oh, I feel sick at my stomach. Oh, my heart is opening. My heart is telling me this. My gut is telling me this. I feel anxiety, and it could be someone else's anxiety that you're feeling, or I feel this ominous presence. Clairsentience is in the feeling. So when you feel something that is coming from something other than being conjured in your mind, that's your clairsentience showing up. Another one is claircognizance. And I feel like we all have this to some degree, whether we're in touch with it or not, but that's your knowing. When you just know something, you don't know how you know it, but you know it. which happens, I think, to a lot of people. I've just heard over and over again, just in conversation, we say it so casually. Oh, I just knew, I just had this feeling, or I just knew something. We have these clairs that are coming in, but it's just, we don't realize what it is. And we've put psychic as this other big mysterious thing, when really these are our gifts, and they're there for us to use and to experience. And it really makes life so much more pleasant and easeful when we can tap into these and we know what they are and we know how to use them. And again, it's just recognizing the patterns. When you start getting to know your own gifts, you'll know what feels like what as it starts to repeat itself, and you can make associations of those patterns. I had to stop for a minute there. My neighbor was cutting their grass or running some kind of machinery, and it got really loud, but I tried to relocate and then it stopped, so we're gonna try again. So these are our four main clairs. We've got clairvoyance, the ability to see. Clairaudience is hearing. Clairsentience is in your feeling. And claircognizance is in your knowing. But there's also some other clairs that don't get talked about as much. One of them is Clairalience, which is smelling. It's a psychic smell. And this may show up like you can smell your grandmother's perfume, even though she's nowhere around or she's passed on. You can smell a food that this person that you loved used to make that reminds you of them. It shows up in your sense of smell. And a lot of times that is because that person is letting you know that they're there with you. And that's their way of communicating with you through your senses. There's also Clairgustance, which is through your taste. You can taste a familiar taste or something that takes you back, transports you to a person or to a place. And that is also one of your psychic senses. And last but not least, there's Clairtangency. And that happens in a couple of different ways. It can happen like you pick up an object and receive information from that object, or it can happen in the way that you physically feel someone touching you. I've had that happen before. I had a dream where my grandmother, it wasn't a dream, but a visitation from my grandmother during the night after she had passed, just like a year or so later. I was really missing her. And she came to visit me, and then when I woke up, I, told her thank you. And then I literally felt her hug me. She was there. She hugged me. She put her hands on my face. My sister has had the same experience with my grandmother. And I've had someone pop me on the hand before, and it was just clear, so like literally moved my hand. And I was like, oh, okay. But I knew exactly who it was because I was in her space and in her world, and it made total sense because I know her and it made sense. But so clairtangency can happen in the way that you feel like someone touching you or something touching you, or when you touch something, you receive information from it. So we have all these beautiful, wonderful senses, and there's this whole other world that exists beyond the physical. It's right here. On the other side of the veil, it's all right here with us. It's not separate from us. And when we learn to tune into these senses, when we know what they are, and can start putting intention behind that, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And the more courage we have with that, the more we will speak openly about it to other people, the stronger it gets. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. It's just like any skill that you practice. It gets better and better as you use it. The more you open to it, the more can come in, the more you can experience and realize, because you have control over this. They are your gifts to use. They're your abilities, however you want to see it. They're yours. So you're not forced to do anything, and you can use them however you will. And there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no obligation around that whatsoever. From my experience, it really does enhance the enjoyment of life when I'm using my gifts. It's so exciting. It feels so fun. And I'm having the most fun playing with my current reality, because the more I use this, the more I realize what's actually available, what's actually possible, what's happening in the energetic world around me. And that's something I got a message the other day that I need to start speaking about, is this energy work that I've been doing that's been coming through me. And I thought it was wild, but I had to start talking about being psychic, because y'all, it's about to get way witchier. But I can't wait to keep sharing it with you. If you identified with something in this, let me know. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, share, all the good things to keep this going and keep getting this message out there. And most importantly, share your experience with others, because what I've discovered is the more I share, the more people are like, hey, I have that too. I just never was aware of it. I mean, I never really thought about it. And that was what it was for me for so much of my life. I just had these things, and Like, it was like smelling. I just didn't think about it. It was just something that was there. And when I brought intention and presence to it, it really became, I've been able to start to integrate it into my life. And it's been very fulfilling, very enriching, and I recommend it. Plus, I feel like we need to be in touch with these gifts. We're coming back to our relationship with the earth, with our relationship with the elements. We're trying to escape this capitalist hellscape, this colonial patriarchy that we have been living under that is completely failing. And so it's important that we're waking each other up to our gifts, because we need these gifts to usher in the new world that we want to be living in, to usher in what we want our next generations to be growing up in. Now, we get to be some really cool ancestors. We get to be the ones that brought this back to life. This is such a special opportunity. It's such a beautiful time to be alive. As stressful and difficult as it can feel, it's just a wonderful time to be alive, to be able to go from one reality. It's like being a millennial, right? I'm a zennial, and I lived in the reality where we grew up and there was no cell phones or internet or anything like that, but I also very much have that present in my life right now. Like, what a special time to be on the side of both worlds. And that's what's happening right now. We're going from this very 3D, like, tangible, physical mindset to this understanding that there is so much more happening around us, and science is getting behind it, and scholars are getting behind it, and people are being like, oh, actually, we can't deny that this is happening. So it is important to share these things so that more people can realize what is working within them, that they can also share it with the world. Thank you so much for being here with me. I love you. I'm proud of you. You're doing amazing, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.